he's more eloquent and better said than I am.
Well, I'm glad you made your correction about Osman Sembel. And who's the other guy? The guy in the Cameroonian. Betty. I think those are the few exceptions to this elite reaction. But you can understand why the elite, the Africans produced by the colonialists, would glorify their role because they were hoping to be successors.
Yes.
That's the fundamental ambition. We are going to take over from these people. So they are preparing themselves for that position psychologically and in all kinds of ways, like all your independence struggle leaders. Their job was not to change anything, but to inherit the colonial structure, which was what all of them did, no matter what they shouted. They inherited it and perpetuated its iniquities on the people. You can go through them, from Nkrumah to Balewa to even Kenyatta after he became the regime. And the only exceptions are Mugabe. But he's about the only exception because he inherited, I guess his history made it easier for him to be an exception. He conquered them. He didn't just inherit the state. He won a war against the colonial state of the Rhodesians and was robbed of victory by all the other African elites because they forced him to go to Lancaster House. He was not willing to go to Lancaster House because, man, you have victory on your hands. Why should I go and negotiate? That was his position. But all these other African leaders put pressure on him to go and discuss with Whitehall. So he went. And of course, they tricked him. But he had to accept because he needed all these African leaders to support his position. So they gave him all these terms that, yes, of course, the fear of the British was they didn't want an example of where an African guerrilla force defeated a white army. That was no. So at that moment, let's negotiate. They never negotiate when you are winning, they call you for a conference. Let's talk about it. When you are not winning, it's force all the way. So they can kill you or catch you and hang you. So anyway, Mugabe went there, but he knew what he was fighting for. And he needed to buy time, which was what he did by agreeing to the Lancaster House Agreement. He bought time because they gave him all these promises, which I'm sure he knew were fake promises. Willing buyer, willing seller. We've created a fund to help you buy from the willing sellers. Of course, he got back and there were very few willing sellers. And the promises of funds were not forthcoming. But cleverly for him and good for the interest of Africans generally, he bided his time. And even when he wanted to, at various moments, wanted to move forward with his land reclamation policy, he remembered South Africa. And he said, well, if I move now, you guys are not going to get anything from these characters. So I'll wait till you finish and get into office. Then I'll move on the land question. It was one of the reasons he delayed the land issue. And when it came time to do it, he began implementing it. Being a clever politician, he did not march out in front. The veterans began the movement. And he waited till the voice of the veterans was becoming very important, so he joined. It was like, my people have spoken. So he joined the movement. It's like, what's her name? What's the speaker in the House of the House in the U.S.? Pelosi. People were shouting for impeachment of Trump. He kept biding her time until there was an overwhelming momentum caused by Trump's own foolishness. So at that point, She's being carried by the people. If he had gone out ahead, they would have shut her down. So the clever politicking is important. You don't move before your people, even if you are instigating them. If you are clever, you instigate them, but stay away. So when they are at the barricades, then you join them and give them the leadership they need. Anyway, I think I've strayed from your point.
No, sorry. We're talking about elite hijacking of what is supposed to be a popular movement.
Well, elites will always do that if they have the opportunity. And the problem is for the people not to give them that opportunity. It's like what the Mao and Co used to say, the party has to supervise its leaders or they'll go astray. We tend to be laid back, we have leaders, so we lay back and they can do whatever they like, which is part of our problem. If the people make it clear that you, Mr. Leader, if you go that way, we shoot you down. Your leaders will behave. You have to find ways of doing that to them. I think it was Chomsky who pointed out that you elect somebody to office, you've lost him, unless you put him under pressure every day. So if you start a movement in the interest of the people, be sure that whoever pops up as a leader, you keep him in check every step of the way. If it means hiring somebody to be a spy in his house, and the day he moves the wrong way, you check him, checkmate him. That's what you have to do. Political strategy and discipline requires that you don't let them run ahead, because the temptations to compromise with the enemy are too great. So basically, our elites, their first concern is their interest. And that is why the people have to make sure that the first concern of the movement is the interest of the people. We can go through examples of people like that. Senghor and his negritude movement, when he got into office, he said he was going to do animation to animate the people to take over and run the state. It was Mamadou Dia who actually started it, but Senghor went along until animation proved dangerous to the elite. Because what animation did was to mobilize the ordinary people to go and control, in the particular case of the economy, all the producers and the chiefs who were robbing them and the traders. When the animation people were taught how to weigh their grain and see whether the scale is right or not, they discovered that the chief and his trader accomplice were giving them false figures. So they began to remove these chiefs, and that was the time Senghor said, oh, no, this is going too far. Because if you continue that way, the French, of course, were watching. So he said, the French basically told him, this is undermining our whole economic interest, so he must do something about it. Which was when his policies began to change. On top of that, he fired his first wife, who was a black woman, and married one of his secretaries, a white woman. He got, what's his name again? Jean Collin, as minister of whatever. The French nominated a Frenchman to be, I think, minister of interior in his government. At that point, you've been sandwiched. The same happened here. Nkrumah took on, what's his name? Bing, as his attorney general. And Bing wrote the constitution that gave all the power to Nkrumah. Nkrumah refused to employ even a private secretary who was Ghanaian. You know who his private secretary was? The former private secretary to the governor, Adrian Clark. When Nkrumah came back, Adrian Clark was in charge, and this lady, what's her name? Not Jumil, was literary Erica Powell, came out as private secretary to the governor. During the negotiation for independence, Nkrumah decided he didn't need a Ghanaian as private secretary because he could not do whatever he wanted without word getting out into the community. So he got this, he began dating this girl, But the girl, of course, told her employer. So they kept watch on them. At one stage, the governor decided that he could not keep a private secretary who was dating the leader of the independence movement. So they were going to ship her back to London. So what did Nkrumah do? He arranged, the girl was a bit worried, so she said, go, I'll bring you back. So they shipped the girl back, he brought her back as his private secretary. She remained his private secretary till the eve of the coup. Because finally she decided to go, she didn't want to stay any longer. He didn't fire her, she left on her own. So the point is, all these your leaders, if you don't keep a close watch on them, that's what they're going to do to you.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. The other thing that is really important for us to be awake to is that after independence,